All right. I think everything is now set up and running properly, and it is time for us to get started. Welcome. This is Ready, Set, Grow. I'm Becky Amble. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about revenue streams that make sense and make money. And we talked last time about some ideas that you might be familiar with. And today, we're going to talk about some that might be not as common. So let me get back to my little screen sharing. And here we go. And our agenda today, of course, we'll start with our kinesiology, get ourselves up and moving and get our brain engaged and working as effectively as we can. We're going to talk about where we are and those new revenue stream ideas. I decided to add a discussion about brain trust instead of the upselling and cross-selling, because we'll do that next time. Upselling and cross-selling can take a day. So I decided that needs to have its own session, and we won't be taking a day. We'll be taking our usual hour, and then we're going to wrap up today. So let's go back and maybe just start here. Let me unshare for a minute. So as you're able, please stand. And the first thing we're going to do is our crisscross, which is opposite elbow to knee. And again, actually, from my brain experts that I talk to, they say that anything you do to get physically engaged, standing up or doing anything, that's why people like Tony Robbins play blaring music and want people dancing and all of that engages your brain and makes it a better environment for learning and retention. So there we have more information. And again, with the kinesiology, it's connecting both sides of the brain, both hemispheres, which really gives us a better opportunity to learn and retain. All right, so hands together, we're going to do the figure 8. And anytime you're doing anything at your desk that takes some thinking, you might want to do some of these things. And just if you get stalled out, all right, back your hands together, intertwine your fingers, and bring it through. 2 more of those, intertwine your fingers, bring it through. And the last one, I know this one seems like it is the most challenging. Anytime that you feel like you need to really fire up your brain, get some things going, you can also do, take a pen and a piece of paper and do figure 8s, and then do the opposite hand, figure 8s. Can't remember exactly. I think you're just supposed to use your less dominant hand for the whole exercise. But since I can't remember exactly, I will just say do figure 8s on a piece of paper, right-handed if you're right-handed, and then left-handed if you're not left-handed, vice versa. So mix it up a little bit and make sure you're using your brain to the fullest. Back to our screen sharing here, just a minute. And again, I encourage people to take notes. Let me see, maybe I can get myself back on the screen. Maybe I can't. Can't remember how to set this up. Oh, well, you don't have to see me, I guess. So we will talk about using some notes. So take notes, whatever way you like to do it. If you've got my journal, great. If you've got another notebook, note cards, index cards, I really like the index cards for certain things, and they're handy. If you've got a couple of quick ideas you want to jot down and carry with you, they're great to take in your folder, your purse, whatever you might carry things in. All right. And again, if you're using a mind map, I'm just showing the typical mind map here. That is the basic mind map. If you're doing this for your own notes, what you would do is put your topic in the middle. For example, if you said new revenue ideas, you put that in the middle, which is what we're talking about today. And then you can put the spokes around. Here's where we are in this whole process of a 3-month plan or program. We've got 3 main pillars or topics. First, get ready. Second, get set. Third, grow. And we are in the middle. and we are on the middle of the middle. So the second thing under get set, and that is revenue streams that make sense and make money. And last time we talked about some ideas on revenue streams that are a little bit more common. You probably knew of most of those. And today we're going to talk about some that might be a little bit different. And I encourage you to just take some notes, put a star in your notes on something that makes sense you want to look at. Next time, we're going to do upselling and cross-selling, and then we're going to get into the grow phase of doing a little to get a lot, master the money, and your A team. So that's where we are now. We are in month 2, and next week we'll be wrapping up that segment. I wanted to just touch again on things that we talked about last time. And this was kind of our outline from last time. And let's look at just quickly some of those profitable revenue streams that we talked about. And there's a process to go through. So the first thing that you want to do is your market research and competitive analysis. So in any of these, you want to really take a look and make sure you've got good information and you do some digging and put that together. So that was step 1 that we talked about last week. Step 2, assessing customer needs and pain points. This is a great thing to be doing anytime because we really need to know what's going on with the customers and assess their needs and pain points. This is, I would say, an ongoing issue for many businesses. Then understand the total addressable market and use whatever words make sense to you. If you want to use total addressable market, total serviceable market, there's a bunch of terms, of course, that I put together for you just so that you're familiar with that. It's really to look at estimating the total market that is available for what you're trying to do. So estimate the total market. Then you want to look at some ideas on how much you think that market is going to grow. And the fourth or the third thing is the market penetration, which is really how much do you think your company can get of what is out there. The fourth point that we talked about, or the fourth step, is identifying niche markets and specialization. Again, the more you can dig in and understand your customers and their needs, the better off you are. And really look at your company's expertise within the industry and understand their problems. When you've got expertise that matches their problems, then you have an opportunity. And put together your unique value prop. Again, there's discussion about value propositions all over the map, but you want to really define a clear and compelling value proposition that sets your company apart from the competition and resonates or, connects with your target audience. So really take a look at all your information, what you've got out there. And then, of course, conducting that cost benefit analysis, because whatever we're going to do, we want to make sure that it's worth our time and effort as best as you can. And depending on the size of your company and the resources that you have, this can be harder or easier. And for smaller companies, it's oftentimes a little bit harder. Yet you still want to do some idea of revenue projections. What do you think you can do? Do this for the year. You might even break it down then of what you think you can do on a monthly basis. That really is where you start to operationalize all of this. And a cost analysis. So really look at what's going to be the upfront and the ongoing costs associated with it. How long is it going to take for you to get this product in the market? And that's going to take some time and some cost then, because you're paying people or yourself or missing other opportunities potentially. So look at your costs and then you break even. At what point is the revenue from what you're doing going to cover the cost? And you want to be able to cover your initial startup investment, as well as then once you hit that point where now any sale is actually a profitable sale. So take a look at those things. And again, you want to leverage your existing assets. I think a key thing is it's often tempting for any of us to think of a new idea and get all excited, yet that might not be what we need to be working on. we might need to really focus on what we already have and making that as effective as possible. Take a look at, are there things that you can improve in the process? Are there ways that you can improve your communications? How about your sales? How about your distribution? So in leveraging your existing assets, I really encourage everybody to take a look at what do you have now and make sure that is doing as well as possible. And you've got everything operating as effectively as you can in your company. And so again, look at maximizing value from your existing products and services. And there may be some things that you can do to enhance the product or service you've got. There might be some new customers that you could attract. There might be some bundling and packaging ideas. We talked about that. Or there might be some way to combine products and services that you have. Then the upselling, cross-selling, like I said, we'll talk about that next time. Another area that we talked about was leveraging customer relationships. And we talked about that also in previous sessions. So again, just keep in mind that having great customer service is a superb way to build trust and enhance your customer experience. And probably in at least mid and larger companies, customer experience is its own discipline now. So if you hear people talking about that, that's really the whole customer service and the opportunity that people have to work with you, just the whole thing. What is it? It's now called the customer experience if you run into some of that. Customer engagement is important. So we want to have personalized communication as much as possible and have feedback through surveys or just discussion. If you're getting things through customer service or your salespeople, document the feedback that people have and give your customers regular updates. If you're developing a new product, or if you're doing something different in customer service, or if you're just solving problems, update them routinely. The fourth idea that we talked about was repurposing intellectual property. And some companies have this and some don't. Usually we have some kind of intellectual property. We might not even think about it. And there's ways that we can license or franchise our intellectual property. We can white label. And again, white labeling is basically where you let somebody else use your technology and they put their own name on it. This happens a lot in the education and seminar business, also through franchises, where some of what franchises do is offer education that their franchisees can then provide to the end customer. And in doing that, the franchisee, let's say that it's Becky Amble ABC, I could put Becky Amble ABC on a workshop that I got from my franchise. So that's an example of how you would do the white label. Now, it doesn't mean there's a franchise involved. I'm just using that example. And then exploring joint ventures and partnerships is another way to leverage your intellectual property or repurpose it. And then we talked last about exploring strategic partnerships, and that kind of comes up again a little bit today. Find companies that have complementary products or services that you can team up with. Do some market expansion where you might use a new strategic partner, an alliance, another business, another organization that introduces you to a new market. It could be a geographic difference, or it could be a different industry. And that's often a lower risk, lower cost way to get your foot in the door in a new geographic location or in a new industry that you might be targeting. And then third point in that was technology sharing. Again, you might be able to share some technology or expertise you have with another compatible company. And that way you both benefit from something that works better for the customer. And resource sharing was the last idea that we had there. And that is where you pool resources with these strategic partners, and that will help reduce your costs for both of you and achieve some economies of scale. So again, if you've got an area of expertise that you bring to the table and your strategic partner has something else, when you team up, your overall costs are often down because now you're going after a certain target market, but you're both engaged and both involved. So your costs will be lower for each business. Those were the things that we talked about last time. So remember those and see if now in a quick overview, if anything popped out and you go, oh, yeah, I wanted to go back and take a look at this, or there was an idea that I thought made a lot of sense for us. Just encourage you to star things in your notes or do whatever to identify an idea you like. Today, we're going to talk about what we call innovative revenue models. These are usually some ideas that you haven't tried before. So new avenues for your company. And most businesses are continually seeking innovative ways to drive revenue growth and stay competitive. I think we all need to keep up on what's going in the marketplace. And when we can look at some new revenue models, this might be a way to attract new customers and also unlock some untapped potential within our existing target markets. So these are ideas that I want to share with you, and you can decide what makes sense. These are the 5 I'm going to touch on, and we will talk about them relatively briefly. And then I want to give you some examples, because sometimes I think examples and stories clarify a lot of what we've been talking about, and all of a sudden it seems to pull together the idea. So we're going to talk about subscription-based revenue model, freemium and tiered pricing, pay-as-you-go and consumption-based models, outcome-based pricing, and licensing and white labeling opportunities. Remember, we had that come up in our previous session as well. And a lot of these ideas build on things we've talked about before. Not all of them. Some of them are maybe a completely different thing than anything that you have done. Oh, I got myself back on the screen. All right, so let's take a look at some of these. This is just a diagram. And again, if you like diagrams, take a screenshot or whatever, and we're going to talk about these different ideas that you can consider. So the first one is a subscription-based revenue model. And I'm just going to touch on these without a ton of detail. So the subscription-based revenue model has gotten more popular in the recent years. Now, if you think about it, this is not that new. Yahoo for email did this, and Yahoo, how long has Yahoo been around? 20 years or something? So it became a thing, even though companies were doing it, and some of us didn't really even pay that much attention until all of a sudden now it's a point of discussion. So let's talk about that one. So it provides businesses, your business, it could, with steady and predictable revenue streams when you have a subscription. So rather than relying solely on a one-time transaction, your company can offer subscription services tailored to your clients' needs. And this approach fosters a few different things that we like: customer loyalty. It encourages retention of the customer, and it strengthens the overall customer relationship because you have, in some ways, a deeper connection. So by providing ongoing value and consistent support, a B2B company can create a win-win scenario where customers benefit from continuous services and the business then enjoys a recurring revenue. Now you might go, well, that doesn't really apply to me. It may or it may not. And I encourage you, if you're a product company and you think, oh, we can't really do a subscription, think about it, because you might be able to. For example, there's a big national company that is in the cleaning, sanitation, killing germ kind of business. They've got a few different buckets that they work in, and they have a stronghold, I think I mentioned this last time, in the hospitality industry. So that means hotels, restaurants, and all of that stuff. And I was talking to some of their people and I said, well, have you considered putting together, because they monitor this. Well, at least in the healthcare world, I know they are monitoring. So they actually track what's going on in hospitals better than the hospitals do when it comes to cleaning and germ control. That's quite amazing, I think. Anyway, this company sells products. Well, they can put it up as somewhat of a subscription service because they can monitor the usage and they know when their customers, healthcare or in the hospitality business, when they're running low on supplies. So they can almost set them up on a monthly distribution. And when I was talking to them, I said, well, have you guys thought about that? They said, don't tell anybody you talked to me, because I think they were worried that somebody else in the company would think that somebody had spilled the beans and told me. And I'm like, I'm just thinking about this as an idea. And I believe they were working on that. So then it became something where they felt it was proprietary. Anyway, I just encourage you to take a look at that, because there's so many things that we can do that sometimes we just need to have a little time to dig in and to think. And all of a sudden we go, oh, that would make a lot of sense. And if we have a way of putting the customer on a subscription and maybe they're getting something from us, and it can be product or service, they're getting it monthly, it keeps them up to speed. They don't have to do the monitoring. They don't have to do the ordering. We're taking that care of that for them. And hey, isn't that what everybody wants, to make it simpler? So in a sense, you can make it simpler for them. All right. That's what I wanted to share on that. Let's talk about the next one, which is freemium and tiered pricing models. And again, this has been around for a while, and it really got a name, well, freemium anyway. And I'm trying to remember, I think this was one of my University of Virginia or University of Illinois programs where we talked about this a while back. Anyway, let's get into this a bit. So freemium and tiered pricing have proven effective methods for attracting new customers and upselling some premium features. So this is a strategy in the upselling option that we'll talk about next week. In the freemium model, let's just talk about that first. Businesses offer a basic version of their product or service for free. This gets customers involved and starts to get customers using their product. Then the idea is to get customers to upgrade to a paid version for additional functionality. So there's usually more that they get. Now, if you remember, if you've had Yahoo or Gmail, I would guess they all probably work the same way. You start out free and then you get to capacity. So then you need to pay for the larger capacity. And in particular, it seems like Gmail is trying to sell stuff all the time. Not quite the big fan of Google that some people are. So take a look at that. I'm going to post a video that I have in the resources that I added at the end of this talk today, in case you want to go hear my little presentation on freemium that I did a couple of years ago. I think it's pretty basic information that we're covering here as well. In tiered pricing, which is another option, you offer multiple pricing tiers with various levels of features and benefits. And you might have seen things where it might be called platinum, gold, or silver. Good, better, best, often used in the tech or the software world. And so let's just say that you have the option of the gold package that has more functionality, more features, bells and whistles than the silver, and is priced differently. And think about what you're doing in your business. Does that give you some options? Would that be something that you could consider? Both of these models allow a B2B company to showcase the value of your offerings and encourage customers to upgrade to higher priced plans as the customer's needs grow. So again, this can be almost a custom or tailored approach for a business, because they might start out just needing a few things. Well, then they grow or their needs change, and then they need additional things, and you're providing that option for them. So see if this gives you another thing to consider in your business. There's also, move this because I'm not sure if that's in the way, pay-as-you-go and consumption-based models. Now, these are a little less common from my experience. And in the pay-as-you-go and consumption models, you give customers the flexibility to pay for only what they use. The email model is sort of like that, a little bit different. These models are particularly relevant for business to business companies that offer services or resources that are variable in nature. So if you have something where your customer might not need everything you offer, then a pay-as-you-go can be a possibility. And I encourage you to take a look at that. And by charging based on the actual usage, you can attract customers that require a scalable and cost-effective solution. So it's kind of like the gold, silver model, or good, better, best. And yet it's just a little bit different. So you might have people that, let's say, need a website designed. Okay, so they need the website design. Well, then they realize that they need maybe some web hosting. Well, maybe they can do it at a smaller scale. Well, as they grow, maybe they think, oh gosh, I need to have an email nurture program. Well, maybe you provide that. So then they need to add that. So keep in mind that there are things that you offer that, again, sometimes it's getting started with a client or a customer and developing the trust and the relationship. And then they feel comfortable adding services, which is a little bit more of the tiered pricing model probably. Yet as people grow in their business, their needs change. So if you can accommodate that, that can be a great option for customers. And again, the pay-as-you-go or consumption-based model aligns the customer's expenses with their actual needs. So customers like the fact that they can pay for what they need instead of feeling like if you bought a Microsoft suite, for example, you go, I don't even need half of that stuff. And what are your options? So think about in your own experience where you've had something like this in your business and felt like, man, it'd be great if I could just get what I need now. And then when I have more needs, I can add things. And another one here we want to talk about, again, maybe more used in the tech and software world, is outcome-based pricing. Keep this in mind as well, because you never know what's going to click for a particular customer and what makes sense for your business. So outcome-based pricing is a revenue model where a B2B company will tie your pricing to the specific results or outcomes achieved for the customer. And I know this happens a lot in software where they might put together a milestone or a timeline, and then compensation is based on hitting those particular deliverables. Keep in mind, that's an example, and see if there's a way that this makes sense in your business. It doesn't make sense for every business. So keep that in mind too. If you go, that just doesn't make sense, okay, pass on it. There's plenty of other ideas that you can use. When you use outcome-based pricing, instead of charging upfront for products or services, the customer or the business will charge and then you will get paid on, like I said, predetermined objectives being met. So again, you might have an outline of those key milestones or goals, certain things that you decide are, we can call them deliverables, whatever the language is in your company. This model builds trust and confidence with customers, again, because now you're demonstrating your commitment to delivering tangible value, that you are saying you only pay us when we get the work done. And a lot of people really like that, a lot of customers. And this puts your customers' priorities above yours, or at least it looks that way to the customer because you're committing to doing the work. And this creates a collaborative partnership or relationship with both parties sharing in the risk and the rewards of getting the work done. Now, other results, like if you're guaranteeing a certain amount of revenue increase, that can be a little bit tricky. It's not that you aren't going to try that, because it might be a good idea. Keep in mind, though, what you don't want to do is tie your compensation to results that you don't have any impact or control over. So if you're doing something for a customer and they're doing the implementation execution and you don't have any say or control over that, that might not be the right thing to tie your outcome to. Now, we have one more, and that's licensing and white label opportunities. And again, we kind of talked about this in the previous session. And this can be a good model too, to extend your reach and access new markets without a significant investment, because you are licensing another company to take your product or service, and white labeling, again, they're going to take your product or service and put their company name on it. So once again, in licensing, you're really letting people use your technology, your brand, or your intellectual property in exchange for that license. If you ever watch Shark Tank, I might have mentioned this last time too. If you ever watch Shark Tank, a couple of the people on Shark Tank, the experts, are big fans of licensing. I think Kevin O'Leary in particular is one that just almost throws that out as an option every time. And then again, the white labeling, this is where you allow a company to rebrand and sell your product or service as their own. So their label goes on it. You know, we've seen this a lot in the food industry, and we don't think too much about it, or that it could apply to ours. And we know that there are a lot of food producers or manufacturers that make product for various companies. And Target, as you might have followed, has got a great private label program going on. Well, we know that they don't manufacture all of these food items, and they don't have fishers and fishing boats catching the fish that they are private labeling. And we sometimes don't think of that idea as something that we in a smaller business could do. I just encourage you to keep in mind these various options and see what makes sense for you. All of these models foster collaboration and partnership, and licensing and white labeling will do that. And it allows you to scale your operation and increase your market presence through shared expertise. So it's a way that you can grow without spending as much as if you are out there knocking on the door yourself. And some of the keys to success here is to have a customer-centric approach. That's really what we've been talking about here, and understanding customer needs and pains, and being focused on that, and tailoring your revenue model and your different options, like we've talked about, to meet their specific requirements. If you're customer-centric, that really is important. Scalability and flexibility is also another important thing, and you want to make sure that your revenue model can scale with the growth of the business and adapt to changing market conditions. So you need to be able to grow it, and you need to be able to be flexible if things change in the marketplace. Third point, technology and infrastructure. And you need to invest in the appropriate and necessary technology and infrastructure to support any of these revenue models that you have chosen to pursue. That's another consideration too, is that going to be worth the additional cost? If you are needing new equipment, new technology, it's part of the discussion of, is that appropriate? And then fourth point, communication education is also important to your success, where you want to clearly communicate the benefits of this new revenue model that you're using to customers, and provide the necessary education or training, because maybe it's going to be somewhat of a new process for them. So you might need to do some training on onboarding with a new process and things like that. And of course, the communication, you want to focus on how this is going to benefit the customer. Then continuous improvement. I'm not sure if you can see that down there. Number 5. Again, regularly you want to update and evaluate the effectiveness of the revenue model that you're using, and make adjustments based on customer feedback and market trends. I guess I've said this enough times, how important it is to keep in touch with the customer and have an organized way to get the information and get it throughout your company, so people that can make decisions are going to have the information. And a lot of times people right on the front lines are your best source of information, and they're probably going to have really good ideas on what will work and what will not work. These different revenue ideas can present some exciting possibilities for your business to elevate your revenue generation strategies and achieve sustainable growth, so that we are, or you are, growing your business every year, from subscription-based models that we've talked about to outcome-based pricing and beyond. These models offer unique ways to deliver value, attract customers, and foster long-term relationships. All 3 of those are outcomes we are generally interested in. And by embracing these innovations that we've talked about and keeping the customer at the center of the strategy, a small business can really harness the power of these different ideas, these different models, to unlock your full potential and thrive in a competitive business landscape, which is pretty much the environment we all are in these days. I wanted to share some success stories from the standpoint that, again, I think it's helpful to talk about what some companies have done. And then you go, oh yeah, I get how that works. Sometimes it just gets more clear when we can share a success story. So I want to talk about Baxter Manufacturing Innovations. And Baxter is a small B2B company, and they specialize in manufacturing and industrial machinery. They wanted to expand their market presence without compromising their core operations. To achieve this goal, they leveraged their existing assets, as we talked about last week, to enter new markets successfully. So let's talk about the three things that they did. So the first thing that they did was product repurposing. They took a look at the machines that they made, and they were designed for a specific industry, and yet they had potential to be used in other industries. So they did some digging and research and repurposed the machines, making some modifications so that the machines then would fit these other target markets or other industries. And this allowed them to get into some new industries and expand their customer base. So they took what they were good at, and they were able to do a little tweaking and go into some new markets. They did strategic marketing and branding. So again, they had the research, they did the research, they put together a plan. And of course, that's something I encourage all the time, is have a plan, lay out what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, clear objectives so that you can measure things and make sure that you are accomplishing what you set out to. And as part of this, then they had a communications plan, and they did some work on branding. So they highlighted the versatility of their machinery and the ability their machinery had to meet diverse industry requirements. So they were able to reposition that, and they targeted some promotion campaigns and trade shows to get into these new industries. And then they were able to reach the potential customers in the new markets that they had identified. And a third thing was customer support and training, because now they were dealing with different industries, different customers. They needed to understand them. Again, back to how important the research is. And they then figured, well, we're probably going to have to do some additional training and education. So they put together a whole plan to provide comprehensive customer support and training for these new customers that were going to buy their new machines, or the machines that they had sort of modified to fit these other target markets. And then the customer was able to optimize their use of the equipment, which of course is what we all want our customers to be able to best use whatever our product or service is to their benefit. And then we want to talk about, how did this affect Baxter? What was the end result? By doing this, by leveraging their existing assets and strategically entering new markets. Again, remember, they did their research and identified who else could use their machinery if they did some modifications. Baxter increased 25% of their revenue from these new ventures. So going after the new industries, the new target markets and companies, they grew 25%. That's pretty impressive. And their ability to repurpose their machinery, as I said, and adapt to the unique needs of the different industries and different target markets allowed them to expand their market share while maintaining their reputation for quality and reliability. So they still were doing a good job with their existing customers, and they built on their reputation of quality and reliability. Another company is Carter Tech Solutions. They're a software and technology company, and they offer software development and technology services. They were in a pretty competitive and crowded market, and it seems like it's hard to find anybody that's not in a competitive and crowded market. So they decided that to differentiate their business and attract more customers, they were going to implement some innovative pricing strategies that focused on two things: value and flexibility. They went after first outcome-based pricing. Instead of traditional fixed price contracts, Carter introduced outcome-based pricing for certain projects, not everything, for some of them. The company collaborated closely with its clients to define clear project goals and deliverables. And payment was tied to the achievement of those predetermined outcomes, emphasizing the company's commitment to delivering tangible results. So as we talked about previously, in doing this, you want to be really clear on what your agreed upon outcome is. Otherwise, it can not work out so well. So be very, very clear and make sure everybody is on board with that. Secondly, they offered customized packages, and they realized that every customer had some unique requirements, unique needs. So they offered customized service packages. Again, service packages that we're talking about here is a little bit of that subscription idea. And clients could choose from a menu of services and selecting the ones that they needed. So again, very customized and individualized. This approach provided flexibility and affordability for clients because they didn't all need everything. And then the clients could select only what they needed. This, as I said, enabled the clients to be more able to pay what they could afford. And the company then could tailor this to meet the different budgets that the companies had. And also when they had specific projects, because in this kind of business, software development, technology services, depending on the project, a lot of times there's a lot of custom work. So it has to be pretty individualized. And that's what Carter Tech did. They also gave some performance objectives to encourage longer-term partnerships with the customers, longer-term business relationships. And in doing that, setting up some recurring contracts and ongoing work with the company, they offered some discounts and additional benefits based on the duration and scope of the partnerships. So again, keep in mind discounting, you want to be careful with that. However, when you've got somebody that, let's say, is involved in a 1-year contract, you give them a better rate than if they paid monthly. If it's a 2-year contract, it's a better rate than a 1-year and a 3-year contract, or you break down whatever those key timelines are that make some sense. And that works out better for everybody. It's predictable for you, predictable for them, and you now have the recurring income. So what did this do for Carter? Well, let's just see. They increased their customer acquisition, and it also enhanced their customer satisfaction. So people were happier. The outcome-based pricing model built trust with the clients. And again, clients only paid for the results they could measure. As well, the flexibility of these customized packages attracted a diverse range of customers from various industries, and this expanded the company's market reach and also drove their revenue growth. So keep in mind, it was flexible. It opened the opportunity for other customers that they would not have had if they hadn't changed. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention too is that we don't want to go do a gazillion things. If we're in a smaller business, we might be able to come up with one new idea. Maybe 2 if they're closer related. We just need to make sure that we keep focused on the business that we have and keep that going, and then look at what is that new idea. And maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, I don't know. Sometimes we just bite off more than we can chew. So think about that. And I would say start with 1. Strategic business partners, they are in business consulting and professional services. So they are looking at putting together growth by partnerships with complementary businesses. And they recognize, obviously, the value of collaborative relationships. And they wanted to expand their service offerings and reach a broader customer base through partnerships. So that's what they worked on. The first thing that they did is complementary service providers, and they identified related and non-competing industries that offered complementary services to their own. And then they formed relationships or partnerships with these companies so that they could offer, both companies then could offer a more comprehensive suite of services to the clients without the need for extensive internal expansion. Okay, so they didn't have to internally expand. So both parties on this could offer a better solution to the customer because now they had teamed up. That's basically what I said. Cross referral agreements as well. So in this, the company teamed up with people, found those other companies where they were compatible, and then they made cross referral agreements. And they were specific because a lot of times if you don't get specific, it doesn't happen. And you probably need a task force or a couple people that are point people on this, and they need to be in communication, or it's not going to happen. Be again clear on your objectives, lay out a game plan and how you're going to do it, and then follow up and make sure it happens. And in the result of this, it helped both companies, strategic business partnership and the other organization that they would team up with, access to new customer segments and increase the chances of converting those leads into clients because now they had a better solution. And joint venture thought leadership and events. This happens a lot. You might not even think about it as a thing sometimes. And this SBP collaborated with the partners that it identified to host joint events and webinars on topics of mutual interest and expertise. So the customers could then sit in on a webinar or a trade show or something that would cover 2-3 topics that were important to them, that was brought to them because SBP and the other organization had the expertise, where in the past they only had one piece of the puzzle. And this is a great way to pool your knowledge and resources and partner up with people because, again, you have valuable insights that you're giving to the client. And this showcases your collective expertise in the market and, again, sets you apart. Go back to thinking about differentiation. The outcome that this organization, Strategic Business Partnership, had then was they experienced accelerated growth and an expanded customer base. And the cross referrals and joint events led to a significant increase in lead generation for them and client conversions. Again, if you think about it, of course, they had a better solution. So they were better able to close those sales. And the collaborative approach not only enhanced SBP's service offerings, it also positioned SBP as a thought leader in the industry, which elevated their reputation and attracted more high-profile customers. There's a couple other stories here. I'm going to skip those for now, and I want to talk about one item here. Let me go to the next slide. So the key takeaways, again, let's talk about how can we summarize this and what are the key things? I hope that you'll identify some of these that are going to be helpful for your organization. First, diversify your revenue streams for stability and growth. Anytime that we can become more stable and have a better growth plan, that is going to help us out. Second, understand your customers' needs and pain points to tailor your offerings. Obviously, I've talked a lot about having good customer information, so you know that that's one of my platforms that I probably talk about a lot. And that is the cornerstone of successful revenue stream opportunities. You need to know that. And that is what allows you to take those customer insights, analyze the feedback, and identify trends so that you're offering your product or service is going to address the real challenges that your customers are having and deliver tangible value. Third point, leverage your existing assets and customer relationships to maximize value. I think we've talked about that enough. Really take a look at what you're doing and make that as strong as you can. 4, innovate and explore new revenue models to stay competitive. That's really what we kind of talked about today. So think about, what are those other opportunities? Is there one that you could start with or not? And then the last part is embrace strategic partnerships for mutual growth and expansion. This is an area that I think sometimes people shy away from. There are some organizations that are all over this. So it really varies. And I think while some segments of the software and the tech world are really good at this, and some are very protective of their proprietary information. So that kind of varies. And you'll have other people kind of in my world that you could say consulting, education, people that are coaching, I don't know, often team up to put together programs. So that's an area that it's really, really common in. Think about these points, see what makes sense for your organizations. And lastly, I want to talk just a bit about a concept called the brain trust. And what is it? Because I think this really relates to a lot of things that we've been talking about. I like this idea. I use this a lot. And let's just get back to, what is a brain trust? Well, the way I define it, because I made up the term, although there are other people that use this term, the way I define it is that it's a group of professional people that you know that are in business. If you're don't see yourself as a business person and you're an engineer, a tech person, or something like that, these are other people that are kind of in your world. So you want to have people that have a similar education, and not all of these, but usually have a similar education, similar experience in what kind of work they do, and a similar background. So one of the people I've got a few because I come out of the medical device world. I've got a few people in med device that I talk to, and recently we had a company that had a med device product, and I think I reached out to at least 4, if not 8 people. I can't remember the number exactly. And I said, hey, here's the product. Here's some things about it. What do you see as the opportunity, the problems, and issues that would be prevalent? And all of us came up with the same conclusions. And that was helpful to me because I think it's always nice to get confirmation on what our thinking is. And that's how I use the brain trust. I've got another brain trust member that I worked with at Medtronic, and he's my market research guru, PhD in marketing and all that stuff, and did research as his career for a number of years. So a lot of times when I've got a client project where we're doing some research, I might call Henry and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Once in a while, I have a really complicated thing, and he laughs and says, oh gosh, now you're going to make me think. I'll have to put my thinking cap on. And I just think it's great to have people that you can talk to. And how to use one? Well, I kind of explained. I use a brain trust for people, and I say, hey, can we talk shop? So that's where we talk about things that we know in common, because I have found that a lot of times if I want to really talk about something I'm working on, it helps to talk to somebody that has a background like mine. If I talk to somebody that has no clue, I'm not going to get anywhere. So I use it to talk shop, to brainstorm, to get feedback, even as a reality check. There have been some things where I've had people say, well, when you talk about market research, you should just teach people how to do it and let them do their own. And I thought, that's an idea, because then it costs them less, but it would take me like a week to teach everybody. And well, that would add up. And I've talked with another research friend, said, what do you think? And they go, no, don't do it. It doesn't work. So sometimes, again, a reality check can be good. And usually we need to have somebody for that reality check that either has our same education, our same experience, our same background, knows our industry, knows the problems that we're dealing with, something like that. Or that reality check is probably not going to be that helpful for us. Criteria for your members. I have a little diagram that I made, and I said, to have somebody in a brain trust that you're going to talk to, you need to know that they are engaging and willing to share information. They usually need to have a specific area of expertise, because again, you're usually going to be asking them something specific that or you have experience in, but you're just kind of wondering. Diversity, age, gender, industry and size of company, some of that stuff can be really important as well. Confidentiality, usually when you're talking to these people, it might be something that's confidential that you're working on, or maybe you have a client that you want to talk about. So confidentiality. I put gratitude in as well, because I think we need to appreciate each other and be able to share with each other, and have people in our brain trust that they know they can contact us to do some brainstorming or be a sounding board. And we're going to engage in that as well. All right, go back to my slide. Finding them. How do you find them? Professional associations are a great place to find them. If you've had corporate or other job experience, people that you used to work with, colleagues, recent college grads can be great. I, in fact, love talking to my son, who's a recent grad. And in fact, I talked about Best Buy last week, and that was something I had interviewed him because I knew some things about Best Buy, but he worked there. So I said, tell me about these things. And I just thought it was a lot of fun to get some current information. Another place that you can find them is trade shows, and they have kind of become back on the schedule of things. And then also read articles, books, find the author. A lot of times you can reach out to them, at least reach out on LinkedIn. That's usually pretty easy. There's, I gave you a couple examples already about how I've used them. And there's 2 articles here. If you are interested, part 1 on why you need a brain trust and part 2, they're both LinkedIn articles. These links hopefully will get you there. They are supposed to work. And a couple other things, because I am super big on having a plan. In my membership group, that's what we do, step by step. All the things that you need to research and tweak and figure out, we do that. It takes 3 months, and we just take it one piece at a time, because I frankly think that's the only way to get anything done, is take one piece at a time. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. So I'm all big on objective strategies and tactics. If you're trying to put that together as we're working through some of these ideas, there's my YouTube video. That's pretty basic. That will, at least clarify some things, hopefully, for you if you're trying to figure out what's the difference between objective strategies and tactics. Then I did do a video quite a while back on freemium pricing. I think we kind of covered it. However, you might want to take a look. And then there's another idea that I did a video on a while back. It's called Pay What You Want pricing. That might be something to take a look at. And then there's show rooming and web rooming. Some of these really apply a little bit more easily to consumer products. I just encourage you to take a look at things that you see out there and think about if there's an idea that you can use in your business. There's not that many new ideas. And freemium pricing, even though we think it's a new idea, it's been around at least 20 years and maybe more than that. And it just was never called something. As you work into your next week, I hope you'll take a look at what we talked about today. And if there are some ideas that you want to dig into, mark those. If you use mind maps, go for it. Do a mind map on one of these ideas. And take a look at any prior work that you've been engaging in. You can take a look at your current revenue streams and look at them and go, is there anything I can do there? Can I tweak that? What can I do to increase my revenue now? One of the things that I didn't talk about is the old 80-20 rule, that 80% of our business comes from 20% of our clients. And one thing I would say, just take a look at customers. Sometimes we get so, I don't know if it's enamored or aggressive or what it is, but we get so caught up in the idea that we need to get new business in the door that we get clients or customers that really almost cost us more money than they make. So take a look at the mix of customers that you have too. And really, as much as you can, go after those customers that are going to be a good fit for you, that you can serve, and that are going to be profitable. We don't want to go after a bunch of business just to say we got new customers and then have 10 new customers that take up a bunch of time and cost us money. Evaluate new revenue streams. If there's something here that we talked about that you think sounds like a good thing to look at, sit down with yourself if you're in a really small company and do the good old Ben Franklin T-chart and look at the pros and cons, or do a SWOT on it or something like that. If you're in a little bit bigger company, just take maybe 30 minutes or 60, or meet a couple times, do a 30-minute session this week and a 30 next week and say, hey, let's just brainstorm some ideas, share one of the ideas, or I don't know, share all the ideas, and then see what your team thinks makes sense, and just pick away at it a little bit. And I encourage you, one step at a time, take one thing. And if you settle on something, launch that new revenue stream, lay out your plan, lay out your timeline, identify what needs to be done and who needs to do it. And if you haven't started a brain trust, maybe you want to think about doing that and building up your board of advisors, your people outside of your organization that you can use as a sounding board. Peer advisor groups are great for that. If you want to join one or are in one, keep in mind how you can help each other. And if you're in a peer advisory board and it's Bob's turn to talk this month, and then it's Mary's turn next month, that doesn't mean you can't be talking to these people, because they are in your peer group. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday when we're going to talk about upselling and cross-selling. If you've got questions, reach out on the Facebook group. You can reach me. I don't have my contact stuff here. I think you know how to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me. Let me know if you have questions or need any help with anything. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week.